Hello, good morning, and welcome to a brand new video. The last almost 2 weeks was quite interesting on the farm. A lot has happened, but not what I wanted to happen. I really wanted to finish the painting and start getting on the tiling, but something caused a delay on that. In the last week or so, what's happened was that, of course, I wanted to continue with the painting on the inside so I could get to the tiling and move on with that section of the new side of the structure. Sadly, that did not transpire because something came in the way of that completion. And that was my shower. Sadly, it stopped draining. I always had a problem with it since the very beginning. But when I brought it up with the builder, he had ignored it. So I had to troubleshoot myself this time around and try and find a solution for the problem. What was happening? Well, it was just not draining. So the water kept bubbling up and literally making gurgling sounds that it just started pushing back, and the whole tray would fill up so that it almost overflows and it made it near impossible to have a shower. And this happened really quickly, like within a minute. So showering was within 1 minute intervals, which is obviously not great, not really relaxing at all. So what happened is I googled a lot of reasons why this could be happening. I then I posted in a couple of DIY channels and DIY groups to see if they maybe had similar experiences or if anyone knew what the problem was. I got quite a lot of feedback. I learned quite a lot. Friends of mine then came in to take a look when I couldn't get hold of the plumber and he wasn't responding to me again. So my friends came to take a look and troubleshoot with me, and we narrowed it down to 4 things that it could possibly be. I slowly started picking away at things. The plumber finally responded and actually came through. He helped me to figure out some of the things. I got my own hands dirty and jumped in there to try and help, but unfortunately it was just too much for me. So, and also the plumber charged me quite a bit for that day's work. So inevitably I reached out to the builder and asked him if this fell into the maintenance warranty on the work that they did. Much to my surprise, he responded really pleasantly and really quickly, and they were here within 24 hours to come and take a look at the problem, spend 2 days here and fix the issue. Which was interesting, which you guys will see a little bit later what that turned out to be. The other things that I've been working on the farm, I had some help in with starting the prune of the olives that really needed to start. I continued on the vineyard, but I didn't really have time because I was focused on the bathroom issue and trying to sort that out and overseeing what they were doing and stuff like that. So I was trying to do an hour every day, which is basically just a row to 2 rows a day, and I still have this entire upper terrace besides 2 rows at the very end that I still need to complete, and I'll continue doing that today and over this weekend. If you're wondering what keeps falling, and the dogs also just heard it and they kind of think it's a cat, I'm sure. The oranges are falling down from the tree as I'm standing here. I wonder if one's gonna fall down now. Of course not while I've got the camera pointed at it. So yes, an incredibly interesting week, a very busy week, and I'm hoping to make a little bit more progress this week on all the things where I want to make progress. So let me show you guys what's happened in the last 2 weeks. Thank you for watching. See you next time.
Is Girl Meets Farm.
Knowing absolutely nothing about trees, I decided to call in a specialist arborist who is going to help me with some of my tree management. For those that have been following since summer last year, will remember that I had some blight on my pear trees, and I was worried that it was going to spread to some of the other trees. But also some of my olive trees are super tall that I found out when I tried to harvest this year, and I couldn't reach the tippy top of them. So I have an arborist in that came to look at all of my trees, gave me advice on all of them, and has started trimming the olive trees. So this is how the tree trimming went. You can see there's quite a lot of branches at the base of this tree. And can you tell that the areas that have been done are the more transparent branches? So the very clustered ones must still be done. To be honest, I was quite surprised that it took so long, because I thought that the person trimming my trees would be able to do all 4 of these in one day, but he's managed to do only half of this tree, and it took him the full day. I mean, you can see it makes a huge difference though, and yes, these trees are massive, but just looking at how quickly the Portuguese people do it, I just assumed that things would go really quickly with trimming this tree. I mean, there's a lot of branches for sure. The guy works incredibly meticulously, but unfortunately I pay him per day, so we'll have to see how that works out. I had another olive guy come to help me prune my big olives. His technique was vastly different to the first guy. This is the first guy's tree where he was thinning out a lot of the branches, but he didn't do this front section. And the second guy, technique is a little bit different. So his technique is to hollow out the inside and only keep the outside with branches, so that the olive tree almost grows like a donut, so you can easily reach all the olives growing on all the branches. He was also a much faster worker, and in one day he did 8 trees all the way around till there, whereas the first guy managed to do half a tree in a full day. Who's better? I don't know. I kind of like the look of the thinned out branches, and I may need to just investigate about these low hanging branches. But he has a lot of experience and he comes highly recommended. And with his method, apparently, he did say that the trees look a little bit scraggly right now, but in 3 years, if we do this consistently, they will really start to take beautiful shape. His experience with olives come from both Italy and France. So yeah, I guess we'll see. They did need some kind of pruning, and look, regardless, I wasn't going to be able to do this year. But I can certainly read up and I can learn and see how this goes. But he's also doing it a lot faster than I guess I would be able to do it. So I'm really happy to have the help and the expertise. He's actually coming back today to see if he can do at least a further 8 trees on my top terrace, and then all the little trees that's kind of on this terrace on this side I can possibly try and do myself, or my regular guy that comes on a monthly basis twice a month can start with the olive trees. There's a practice here whereby most of the farmers, once they've cut down all their olive trees and they've pruned their olive trees, which is quite extreme, they just burn all the branches. Now me, I'm gathering all branches from my vines as well as my olives, and I'll let that season and dry over summer and use it as firewood for next year. These guys obviously don't really care about that, so they just burn the branches on the spot. I just have to quickly interject here because the burning is also to prevent fire risk, so it's better to keep it all clean and clear and burn it all in one go. Usually one has to ask permission to burn things and to have these kinds of fires so that it prevents the fire brigade from being triggered on calls when there's fires being spotted. So one actually asks permission to do this kind of stuff. And yeah, as you can see over the wall there, my neighbors have made a very big pile of olive tree branches and are burning that today. Finally, the time was here to prune the vines. They were starting to look really untidy and super overgrown, and they do need to be done before spring hits and the new vines start growing for this year's grape season. I called upon my trusty helper Paul to come and help me prune the vines, and he made a good start on them. I also asked him to give me a little tutorial as to how to do it properly. Even though I had watched quite a few YouTube videos, it was nicer to get a one-on-one tutorial from Paul, and his vines look incredibly amazing after the pruning. Because I had just let them grow pretty wild during season, my vines really needed a good pruning. All of these little arms were growing out everywhere, and Paul explained to me the best way to prune them was to look for the big branches and then keep 2 appendages per big branch, and from those the new season's growth will come and the grapes will grow there. So all these extra peripherals coming out the bottom of the big stems need to go, and one only keeps 2 appendages, I want to say, growing from the bigger stems. He also mentioned that it is good practice to remove any of the dead bark around the big stems. My wonderful helper Paul was able to help me about 3 days, and he made a huge dent in pruning the vines. So there's only these few rows left, and the whole top terrace, which isn't as much or as overgrown for me to do, which I'm going to try and tackle on the weekend. But look how beautiful the sections look where he has pruned, and what a big difference that makes. Oh, I think it looks so beautiful and so neat. And one can actually walk through the rows now. And this is the overgrown ones. Big difference. We're still busy with the olive trees and the olive tree pruning, and I will try and tackle some of the fruit trees myself. The 3 pears and any of the others that need trimming back. It'll have to be done in the next couple of weeks because spring is around the corner. And the bottom terrace is now fully complete. I've had this issue with the shower where the shower just doesn't drain and it makes gurgling noises all the time, and the water just backs up within a minute and this whole shower tray is just full of water. I asked a couple of DIY forums, I read up a little bit, friends of mine came to take a look, and then eventually the plumber arrived a week after I asked him to come. We opened up this vent, we opened up this trap, which was a huge mission in itself, but there was nothing in there. Then we moved to the vanity and opened up this S-trap. We disconnected it from here so that it would become its own vent if we straightened out the pipe, to just test if a vent on the pipe would solve the issue of their gurgling. I wished it was that, because that would have been the easiest solution. It was not that. And when the plumber blew on this pipe, instead of going out, because there was water in here, it actually came this way and pushed out all the sand that you're seeing here now, and all the water came gushing through here every time he blew on that pipe. So that means that there is a possible obstruction somewhere down this pipe track. Could be concrete, could be sand. At this point, I won't be surprised if it's a plastic bag that someone forgot in one of the pipes. And then we decided to dig up this area where the pipes start going down into the ground, and there's a 45-degree connection of the pipes because we just wanted to check if maybe the obstruction was there. And then the plumber found a leak on this pipe over here, and there's a second one but he caused that when he opened up this area with his breaker. And I'm not surprised that there's a leak, because this area has been wet the entire time, even during the beautiful summer days we've had. We haven't had rain in so long, and yet this area remains wet. So I was thinking that there was definitely some kind of leak in one of these ground pipes, and just hoping that it's not the sewer pipe. I'm really hoping that this leak that we discovered, which is on this connection right here, is what is causing all of this leakage down here, but I'm not sure if it could be causing this much water, or if we have to dig up this entire track of pipe to see if there's any more leaks. I sincerely hope we don't have to do that, but the plumber has left now because he didn't have the correct breaker to take out more of this concrete. We actually have to take it up all the way to the next join, which is here, and this is an electrical wire, so I'm just hoping he's going to be careful when he breaks out the rest of this floor, because we have to change this connection, which is where the leak was that he's found, and now we obviously have to change this pipe here as well, because he went through that with the breaker. We also do have to put a vent on this pipe, just in case, to make sure that we're getting all the air out. So we might put the vent somewhere in here. I'd prefer it actually in the bathroom water pipe that's coming up behind the vanity. But yeah, so now this is it, and I really do hope that when we fix these pipes, this water disappears, because if it doesn't, that means that the rest of this needs to be dug up. And this water, you can clearly see the difference in the coloring of the sand. This whole area just stays perpetually wet. So here it starts looking a little bit better. We did have some rain overnight, so that's from that. And the rest is pretty dry here. So I'm really hoping that it is just that little section of pipe over there. And hopefully when that is fixed and we've put a vent in, we're also going to just stick some rotting irons up the pipe and see if there's anything that's still left in the pipes. Maybe it's concrete, maybe it's sand, maybe it's a plastic bag. Try and pull whatever is still stuck in there, if there's anything stuck in there, out. and hopefully that solves my shower drainage issues. Gosh, fingers crossed. Oh, I'm out of breath because while the plumber went to go and fetch the new pipe fittings, I decided to dig up the trench a little bit and see how difficult it would be. So I just started digging with this thing. I forget what the Portuguese name for that is, but anyway. And it's not a really great discovery because these pipes are so surface level. They're really not deep at all. But this is where this whole area is wet, and I just hit a stone here that looks really wet, so I'm worried that there's more leaks down the pipe. But I'm gonna keep going and see how far I can get before he comes back from lunch. I wanted to do it while he was on lunch because I don't want to see him. I don't want him to see how pitiful I am at digging. Right, let's see what we find. I have not yet found anything like leaks, but what I am finding is a lot of sharp building rubble and sharp stones that are on here and tiles, which I strictly recall having the conversation with the builder saying we should obviously not put rubble on this trench because what if it breaks through the pipes, which is a huge possibility. But anyway, I have not yet found a leak. I'm going to keep digging and see what I find. I want to try and get to the join on the grey water pipe to see if there is a leak here because this ground is really wet. Once I had uncovered that section, we could test it, and clearly it looked like there was an obstruction. At this point, I decided I was not going to dig up the rest by hand and called in the builder, who actually arrived. They dug up the rest with a digger, found the issue was that the whole line was bowing, fixed the fall of the line, and then we tested it, and it seemed to work now. This morning, everywhere the sun hasn't touched is covered in frost again. As this week we've headed into minus temperatures, and I believe it reached -2 last night, and we are headed for minuses this entire week. Even the sand is covered with frost, and the gloves that were left out overnight. Can you see the ice crystals on there? The ground, all this white dusting is frost. So anyway, after the builder was here yesterday, we uncovered this whole trench all the way through till the very end where it exits, and relay the fall of the pipes so that it matches with the waistline, which seems to work okay for now. We tested the grey water line, and the grey water line was working a lot better after we had fixed that fall. They then covered up this back section, which still needs to be fully covered. I asked them to keep this back section open for me because I'm going to try and uncover that a little bit more over there and just add a vent pipe somewhere along the grey water line on the outside as well. I'm also going to try and install an inline venting pipe on the inside of the bathroom so that we definitely have no issues. I was incredibly excited last night and had a nice long overdue shower to test whether everything was working, and so far so good. no gurgling. Well, actually there was a bit of a gurgling burp, and I thought the water was going to start backing up, but then it ran out again. So thankfully it seems like the issues are solved. I don't really want to say that, but touch wood, let's hope it's solved, because today what we're going to be doing is to fill this back up with concrete. And because the pipes that are underneath here are so high on the surface, we need to find a better solution for here as well, and possibly cover or just fix them in with some concrete for this first section, and I need to find something else that can cover that section as well. I don't want to open them just yet because it's really, really cold. And the area has now been cemented in, including that stretch, that first stretch where the pipes were really, really high. And I'll put something else over the rest of this stretch so that it can just keep all the pipes safe in future as well. It gets a little deeper after there. So this area from pretty much here downwards is where the most exposed pipes are. But this first section, again, covered in a light layer of concrete, but it certainly will need something else in addition to that to keep those pipes safe. Some of the electrical cables weren't quite put back together again, and the area is not looking as neat. I was expecting like a thin layer of coverage to go over this again, but this is nothing that I can't try to do myself and just neaten everything up here once this concrete is dry and settled, or possibly even when I start tiling. For the most part, it'll be great to just use this again when this is dry in the next couple of days, and then also hopefully just hope that all of the pipes are still working now that they've all been covered in plaster and all been filled back in the rest of this track here. Fingers crossed it still works, because if I have the same problem again, we have to address this once more. The end result of the concrete. It doesn't look wonderful, but you know, it's less of an eyesore than I thought it was, and I must just figure something out. But it at least covers the pipes and it protects them a lot better than just having the ground cover over that. And back to the pruning for me. See you next time.